All right, what is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode podcast real estate tip. And today I'm here to talk to you about the 5 most important things that you must know, that you need to dial in order to have the most possible success with your overall real estate scripts. Now, I don't care what script we're talking about, what lead source, buyers, sellers, agent recruiting, whether it be inbound, outbound, prospecting based, online based. These are just the 5 fundamentals that I have found in order to have success with whatever scripts that you are out there utilizing. Because look, the reality is this, is you and I, we can have the same exact script, saying the same exact thing to the same exact lead source, but have totally different results. So there are some things, so there's so much focus on scripts in our business, and I get it, I understand it, even though I'm one that tries to get off scripts as soon as possible. But it can sound hypocritical, because if you were to come join my real estate, business or my real estate team or partner with me, like you're gonna see I've got a script for every little thing. But the reason why I do that is, look, I never want to have a situation with my agents where they're ever in a situation where they don't take action because they didn't know what to do. However, I try to help them develop the skill, not that I try to, I do help them develop the skill sets and the knowledge and these 5 things I'm going to walk you through today so I can get them off of scripts as soon as possible so they can have the most success with conversions and all of this stuff, right? So why do we have scripts? Right, so scripts exist so we can have an effective conversation, but if we don't dial in and hone in these 5 things, like the script itself becomes irrelevant. So I want to walk you through these 5, again, most important things so that way you can have success with scripts, because again, there's not a day that goes by where I'm not having a conversation with somebody inside of our industry and dude, like I look at what their script is, but they're getting 0 results with this thing. Yeah, right. With their execution on it, it's because they're missing, either one of these 5 things or sometimes all of these 5 different things. All right. So real quick, before I jump into these 5 things, make sure to check out gsdmode.com for more additional free resources, more additional free training. I also highly encourage you to jump on a 60-minute free strategy coaching call with me personally, where we can break down your business, look at where your business is currently at, what your 12-month goals are, what your long-term goals and visions are, what you're currently doing, what your biggest obstacles are. Then from there, I can help map out and make sure that you've got the best execution strategy plan to get you from where you're at to where you want to go in the quickest, most effective, efficient manner possible inside your real estate business. And you have my promise on this, that you will not leave this 60-minute Zoom coaching call without not knowing exactly what you must do in order to, again, get from where you're at to where it is that you want to go. So if you are struggling right now and your business is not exactly where you need it to be, I highly encourage you to jump on this call with me immediately. 0 strings attached. I don't advertise these. I just put this out in the GSD Mode podcast to repay all you amazing GSD Mode supporters. So it's just a way for me to give back to you for all your support that you continue to give the channel here. And look, even if your business is kicking ass and you're rocking and rolling, look, it can be good to have a second set of eyes just to see if there's anything that you're missing, to see if there's any opportunities of growth that maybe you're missing inside your real estate business. So if that's something you want to take advantage of, you can go to gsdmode.com. You'll see a top banner there, or you can go to gsdmode.com/Zoom call. Or if you just scroll below into the show notes or the show notes or the description, depending on where you watch or listen to this, you'll see a link below to go out there and do that. Okay, so now let's jump into the 5 things that you got to do in order to have optimal success with your scripting. And as I said before, okay, scripts exist so we can go out there and have an effective conversation with this lead or with this prospect. And it's not even just, scripts aren't just for leads or prospects. Scripts are also for clients, right? It's like, okay, like we have, so let's just say I got a buyer client. I'm out there showing a buyer client properties and we find, a home that, like we find the one. Okay, well then I got my offer writing script, so it's not just like we have scripts for every element of the funnel, right? So that's just so we can move the process forward and we can have an effective conversation. However, if we do not allow people to be opened up to having that effective conversation, if they shut down, well, then the script itself becomes irrelevant. So the first thing that I want you to know, that I want you to understand, is what the consumer wants and why people shut down. Because I don't care, again, how good your script is. If they are not listening to it, you are not going to have an effective conversation. We've all been there. You've been there. And if you just look at maybe a different aspect of your life, like you've been in a situation where you're the consumer, you're being hard sold or whatever in a situation, and just think about a time where somebody's talking to you, you're not even listening to what they're actually saying. You're just thinking about, okay, like, how am I gonna, what's my rebuttal gonna be? Or you're thinking about how the hell do I just get out of this situation? So then from there, you're not even really internalizing. You're not even really listening to what they're saying. So that's called passive listening. And we want to be in a situation where we have our people active listening, not passive listening. So with that being said, okay, what the consumer wants is the consumer wants the information that they want and need to make their best informed decision, but they want to do that in a safe, non-pushy, non-pressure environment. And that's so important, I'm going to repeat it. So what the consumer wants today is the information that they want and need to make their best informed decision, but they want to do that in a non-pushy, non-pressure, safe overall environment. So we got to give people what it is that they want. And why do people shut down? We also just got to understand human behavior. We got to understand what people want and overall human behavior. People today are more sensitive and easily triggered than any other time in our lifetime. Like to the point where this was, I don't know, year or so ago, maybe 2 years ago, my son's in this like volleyball club and he's at a volleyball tournament and it's at a local college. And I walk by and they have like these safe rooms, at this college. I'm like, what the fuck, safe room? Right? Like, but it's like, okay, like they have safe spaces now because people get so, triggered and so easily triggered where they can go in there and I'm not trying to make fun of that, but I'm just saying that like, look, we are in a space right now, which is where human beings are at, where people are so damn easily triggered, where they go into fight or flight mode so fast. So what happens when people go into fight or flight mode? And one of the ways that people get triggered into fight or flight mode is if they feel as if they are being sold. So the second they feel as they're being sold, boom, it triggers the croc portion of the brain. They go into fight or flight mode, and that's where they shut down, right? They're either trying to fight you and they get combative, or they're trying to flight and get the hell off the phone, right? But that's where they get in that passive listening and not that active listening. So this becomes really important because again, I don't care how effective your script is. You and I, we can have the same script and get totally different results based on, what I'm going to be walking you through here. So number one is we got to understand that. So we got to make sure the goal, the objective, so we can have an effective conversation. The whole point of the script is to have an effective conversation where we can lead the conversation and get, the outcome that it is that we're looking for through that conversation. Well, we got to get them, number one, to be able to listen to our overall script. Now, how do we do that? That's going to lead me into part 2 and 3 of these 5 most important things. So number 2, so first is having the understanding. Number 2 is this is where pre-frames become so important. So if I look at a pre-frame, think of a pre-frame as how do I set up this, this potential conversation so then that way I can have an effective conversation. So the way I always, like to describe pre-frames, because again, scenario situation that we've all been in. Let's just say, okay, you got a good friend, family member, loved one, somebody you really care about. Maybe they're just doing some stupid shit in their life. And you're like, man, I got to sit down. I need to have a heart-to-heart with this person. But then you start thinking to yourself, you're like, well, how should I best bring this up? Like, what's the best environment? How should I best bring this up? Because I want to make sure that they understand that I'm with them. I'm not against them. Because if they think that I'm against them, if they feel like they're being attacked, okay, this can very quickly go from an effective conversation to a blowout. And then now we're in a fight. So when you're thinking of that, that's pre-framing. How am I going to pre-frame this conversation to then have that effective conversation so you can get the outcome that you want? So I'm always thinking about, okay, like my openers are my pre-frames. So what pre-frame opener do I need to open up with? And in which way do I need to open that up so I can have that effective script conversation, right? So then I can get into the overall scripting. So that's what a pre-frame is. So you got to learn in every single lead source, not every single lead source, but there's going to be different, like the pre-frame, let's just say I'm calling sellers. Okay, the pre-frame that I open up with if I'm calling divorce leads is going to be way different than absentee owner leads, way different than a FSBO lead, way different than an expired lead, right? They're going to have different pre-frames, based on where their state of mind is and based on what my scripting is. And my scripting is going to be based off of, what that person is going through. The best marketers understand that you enter the conversation that's taking place in that person's mind. So as an example, with an expired, I call it the triple whammy gut punch. Okay, so and I'm not saying you got to call expireds. I'm just using this as an example. Okay, so if we look at this, like number one, they had these real estate goals that they were really excited about having met that became unmet. That's gut punch number one. Number two, their home just got rejected by the marketplace. To them, like everybody owns a home. Like your home's something special to you. So then, I'm like, okay, like to know that nobody wanted our home. Okay, that's like gut punch number two. Number three, they just had a realtor, real estate agent realtor that promised them they could get the job done that let them down, gut punch number three. So, my scripting, the whole point of my scripting is to be able to articulate to that potential that potential, client that, hey, your real estate goals can still be met. Your home isn't the problem. The good news So let me go repeat that, right? Or go through that again because I fumbled on that. So, the whole point of that script is to let them know, okay, hey, look, you got a beautiful home. Your home isn't a problem. Number two, your real estate goals can still be met. Number three, unfortunately, the mistake that you made is you hired the wrong real estate professional. The good news is I can get the job done. My script isn't going to come out right out and say that, but through my real estate scripting, I need to be able to articulate that to them through the scripting. But the pre-frame is, how do I open up that conversation when I first reach out to them that they don't feel as if they're being sold, they don't go into fight or flight mode. So, like with buyer leads, let's just say I get a Facebook lead. Anybody does a lot of, online buyer leads, what do you always get from buyers? Oh, I'm just browsing. Oh, we're not looking to buy, we're just browsing, right? So part of pre-framing is mirroring. So I always go to those buyer leads and say, hey, I know that you're probably just browsing, not looking to make a move now or anytime at all in the near future. So just hypothetically speaking, if you were to make a possible move in the future, what would you say your best guesstimate to when that time frame might possibly be? So like one of the pre-frames I use this for circle prospecting. I'll use this for calling divorce. I use this for a lot of agent recruiting as well. But I'll reach out to him. Let's just say, I don't know, that name's Joe. Hey, is this Joe? Yeah, this is Joe. Hey, Joe, this is just Joshua Smith here with XYZ Real Estate. Wanted to see if you could help me out with something really fast. And look, this is probably a shot in the dark, something you're probably not interested in. And if you're not, no worries at all. Just let me know, and again, no problem at all. But I just want to run it past you just in case it might be something that you might have some possible interest in. So that is an opener pre-frame. It makes them feel comfortable. So if we just kind of dissect that, like why is that an effective pre-frame and how does it make them feel comfortable? So I'm going to jump into step 3 here on tonality in a minute, but it's kind of a slow, neutral tonality. So I'm introducing myself. Hey, is this Joe? Yeah, this is Joe. Hey, Joe, this, and I'm intentionally using some stutters because it's not about not sounding just like other realtors. It's about not also sounding like any other recent sales experience that they had. Because I know the second they feel like they're being sold to, their guard goes up. Like the best salespeople out there, like you don't even know that you're necessarily being sold to. Now, once we get into scripting, they're going to get that it's a real estate call, right? But I need them to feel comfortable to be able to open up to me so we can kind of dissect what's going on. So then from there, when it's, this is just Joshua Smith here with XYZ Real Estate. Hey, I wanted to see if you could help me out with something really fast. And look, this is probably a shot in the dark, something you're probably not interested in. Like what salesperson leads off with that? So it creates curiosity. It's starting to lower that guard. Hey, I know this is probably a shot in the dark, something you're probably not interested in. If you're not, no worries at all. Just let me know. And again, no problem at all. So now I've given them permission up front that it's okay to say no. So, hey, I know this is probably a shot in the dark, something you're probably not interested in. And if you're not, no worries at all. Just let me know. And again, no problem at all. But I just want to run it past you just in case it might be something that you might have some possible interest in, right? So again, the whole point of this is to diffuse, keep them out of fight or flight mode, to keep them into active listening mode. So now we can have an effective conversation. Now, part 3 of this, so number 2, like I said, nailing pre-framing. Number 3 is nailing tonality. So tonality, again, you just got to understand 70% of sales comes from verbal, nonverbal cues. So it's not so much what you say, it's how you say it. This is why I slow way down, keep a pretty soft, neutral tone, which is hard. Like I got to be very intentional with this because my natural energy levels is I talk fast, I go fast, like everything I do is freaking intense and fast. But I know in a sales situation, like I'm going to freak people the fuck out. So I have to alter my natural state of doing things so I can have effective, conversations and get the results that we want to go out there and get. So having, a soft, and there's different times for different tonality, but you just got to go out there and nail it, right? So tonality can take a while to nail, but just understand that you got to nail tonality. Quickest advice that I'd have right there to just kind of fix it out of the gate or help you is just slow things down. Keep a softer, more neutral tone. I use also a lot of de-anchoring words. It's like the old school way of selling. Now, when I say old school way of selling, I've been doing this 20 years. This old school way of selling has never been effective the 20 years I've been in sales. But I guess maybe back in the 80s and shit. But it seems like there's just still so many 80s sales tactics that are taught in our industry. But it's like, you got to anchor the sell. Like, get them nodding their head yes, get them saying yes, get them to, anchor that sell. Well, I found that, people are pretty damn savvy. Whether it's even on a subconscious level, they picked up on that. So this is why I use possibly and maybe and, words like that. Like I was talking about with the potential buyer lead of, hey, I know that you're probably not looking to make a move now or anytime at all in the near future. Hey, I know you're just browsing, probably not looking to make a move now or anytime at all, anytime now or anytime in the near future. So if you were to, possibly make a move in the future, what would you say your best guesstimate to when that time frame, might possibly be? So I'm using a lot of de-anchoring words. Slow tone, all intentionally, insert some different, little stutters. Again, it sounds unorthodox, it sounds weird, but it's just effective, right? Okay, so then number 4 is to operate off of objectives. So, I know the objective of every initial conversation with any lead or prospect, and then I know the objective of every subsequent follow-up conversation with that lead or prospect, right? And when I say lead or prospect of I don't care if it's inbound, outbound, there's different definitions for these, but I understand the objective. So let's just say that initial conversation, I understand the objective is to identify their goal, identify their timeline, set the appointment if able or appropriate, if unable or appropriate, because I know their goal and timeline. Now I know how to follow up accordingly to maximize conversions for if and when they're ready. The reason why number 4 here is so damn important is, look, shit goes off script so fast. So scripts are good to be able to kind of set a baseline, but understand things are going to go off script very, very fast. So when we're able to understand the objectives, now we know how to kind of pull it back in. So I can allow things to go off script where I'm not throwing off my game, where I can keep the great effective conversation going and keeping, my tonality. We don't want to break that. We want to keep all of the things I've already talked about in place, pre-framing, reframing, tonality, but then it doesn't matter what direction that, or how far off script this thing gets based on, where the person takes it. I'm able to still accomplish the objectives of that call. So like I said, the objective of that conversation number 1 with any lead or prospect source is to identify goal, identify timeline, set appointment if able or appropriate, if unable or appropriate, because I know goal and timeline. Now I know how to follow up accordingly to maximize conversions for if and when they're ready based on what their goal and timeline is. The other thing with the objectives is, because you'll hear crap, and I've heard this for, 20 years I've been in real estate. I've just found it to be absolute and utter bullshit, is, there's 5 different objections that you get per lead source. But once you know those, then you know how to overcome those. And look, I'm not saying that there's probably not half a dozen or so per lead source. Common objections that you get. The reason why I call bullshit to this is, you and I are consumers in our life. Right? Outside of real estate, you and I are consumers in different areas of our life. You and I, we never went to objection school, right? So we were never taught proper objections to give, right? So when most people are giving objections, that's because you trigger fight or flight mode. We haven't developed the right skill sets, right? So it triggers fight or flight mode. Now they're just giving these different objections. Most people don't even know why they're giving the actual objection that they give, right? So we got to have the ability to unpack those, because objections are typically a lack of education and or concerns, or reality of the situation, right? Maybe they decided they're holding off, they decided not to sell, but maybe that's not an objection. Maybe that's just a reality of the situation. Maybe they're there's an expired that you call, and then you find out that they were going to retire, but they decided not to retire. They're going to continue working for 2 more years with the economy, maximize out their retirement, maximize out their 401k. Okay, that's no longer an objection. That's a reality of the situation. Now, my job My objective is to then stay in touch with them over the next couple of years. So if and when they're ready to sell, then boom, I get that business, right? But we've got to be able to unpack those true root concerns, aka objections that they have. Right? And the only way to do that is by getting them to feel comfortable, to be able to have that effective conversation with them. That's why pre-frame and tonality are so important. But when I understand what the objectives are, timeline and goal, right? Well, then it allows me to keep unpacking those. So maybe I'm calling it expired, go through my pre-frame with them, go through all of that with them. And then it's something like, hey, just out of curiosity, what were you looking at moving to? Oh, we were looking at, maybe they're, I don't know, it's expired in Michigan, you're working the Michigan market, and they're looking at relocating to Sarasota, Florida. We were thinking about, retiring and relocating to Sarasota, or we were thinking about relocating to Sarasota, Florida. Okay, well, great. Well, it sounds like maybe you were trying to get there sooner than later. Is that still the goal, or maybe things change there? No, we decided to hold off. Hey, no worries. Totally understand and wanting to hold off. What's causing you want to, potentially hold off? Interest rates. Right? Well, it may not even be interest rates, right? Because if somebody tells me interest rates, this is kind of another tip here, is you always want to be together, never against. The surest way to piss somebody off is tell them that they're wrong. So somebody tells me, like in that exact situation, we decided to hold off because interest rates. Hey, I totally get it. I totally understand. I've been selling real estate for over 20 years now. I never thought I'd see a point in time in my career where we'd see prices as high as they are. And then you stack on top of that with the interest rates where they are at today, making payments so insanely unaffordable. I never thought I'd witness anything like we're seeing right now today. And it's making it a challenge and hard on so many, families out there. So I totally get that, totally understand that. Now let me ask you this. And look, I'm not promising that this is something that can take place. Could be a shot in the dark, but look, I'm never one to give up on a client. So let me ask you this. If it was possible, if we were able to get your home sold, get you the dollar amount that you need for your home, so we were able to get your home sold at the terms that you need, then we were able to find you exactly what you were looking for and get you the terms that you need with that property. And then there was a way where we were able to get your interest rate down to where we need it to be so your payments are in that comfort range. If all of that was a possibility, and like I said, this could be a shot in the dark. Not promising that it's going to be a possibility, but as I mentioned earlier, I'm never one to give up on a client. So if that was a possibility, then would you have some possible interest in maybe moving forward? Right? Now, if they just told me that, okay, their objection is interest rates, that's what they told me why they're not moving forward, then they'd be like, well, yeah, if that was a possibility, yeah, we would definitely move forward, right? Because nobody cares about interest rates. What they're saying is it's unaffordable right now. Payments are unaffordable, right? So, okay, if there was a way to solve that, then would they want to move forward? Now, if they tell me no, now I know that was kind of a cop-out, objection. Not that they're lying, but again, they don't always know and really understand the objections that they're giving. So now I can unpack that further. Okay, so it sounds like maybe there's something in addition to the high interest rates that are causing you to, want to possibly hold off. I mean, what else might that be? And again, soft, neutral tone, just keep unpacking so I can get to the core root, concern, right? To see if I can go out there and solve that. So number 4, we want to understand the overall objectives, right? Number 5 is you got to make sure that you got the right script for the right strategy / lead source, right? So this becomes really important. Okay, how I'm going to pre-frame in my scripting. So my pre-frame, my opener, and my overall scripting is going to be different for an expired than it is a FSBO, than it is an absentee owner, than it is a divorce, somebody going through a divorce, or a notice of default, or circle prospecting. It's going to be different whether it's Zillow lead or Facebook lead or open houses. If you're in agent recruiting, okay, it might be different from a new agent to a seasoned agent, right? And based on those strategies, like you got to make sure that you've got the right script, the right pre-frame, and the right scripting. Now, the objectives, like I talked about, are always going to be the same. Right? To identify goal, timeline, set appointment, favorable, appropriate, if unable, appropriate, because we know goal and timeline. So my overall objectives are always the same. But the actual pre-frame opener and the actual scripting will greatly differentiate per strategy, per source. So you want to make sure that you've identified the right one, based on that. And then from there, practice them. Yeah, right? Like go out there and practice them. Now, I'm not a big believer in role playing. Not for myself anyways. I'm not saying that that's something that floats your boat, go out there and do it. But what I'll do is, okay, like I'll identify the right script that I know is proven, that I know gets results based on a killer that I know that's gotten results with those things, right? I'm not just going to go print some random off online. I'm going to find somebody that's freaking crushing it with that source, get that scripting from them, figure out what this is, Then the first thing I do once I identify it is I write it out. Because when you write it out yourself, like force you to internalize it. Then I might practice it a couple hundred times. Yeah, right? Like usually practice a couple hundred times in front of a mirror in like less than 2 hours. And then from there, I just dive in. My whole entire career, people were like, oh, dude, go join this role play group. Go. And I'm like, why? I'm going to go role play with a bunch of other realtors that aren't doing the work, that aren't going to give real objections, that I'm not going to get any actual gain from. I've just found that, hey, man, I'm just going to go jump on the phone with these 200, expires or these 200 lead sources. Now in my mind, I can just pretend that, hey, this is practice. This is me role playing. So I remove those expectations for me of results. But I'll get more experience in an hour of actual being on the phones and in the trenches, right, with that specific lead source than I will in a freaking month of just role playing with a bunch of random agents, right, or other agents. So that's, been my overall strategy for how I've went out there and kind of applied this stuff. So make sure that you got the right script for the right strategy and source. So number one, understand what the consumer wants and why people shut down. So human behavior. Number two, make sure that you are pre-framing correctly. Number three, make sure you got the right tonality. Number four, making sure you understand the overall objectives. Then number five, making sure you got the right script for the right source or right, strategy, right source. So these are the 5 most important things that I've found that we need to dial in to have success with our overall scripts. And if you miss these, again, you can have the right script and get shitty results with it, right? If you don't nail these 5 things. So I hope that this is helpful. Again, make sure to check out gsdmode.com for more additional free resources, more additional free training. Truly appreciate you guys. Keep crushing it, keep kicking ass, and I will see you next time. Peace.